Mr. Chairman. I do have an amendment, and before I get to it, I just wanted to thank the Big Four for allowing my amendments in the manager's amendment, particularly the one that will allow the freight network to include the last mile into our ports and airports, and also the one on youth job training and employment. So I want to thank you for that. So this amendment, colleagues, is about ferry service. It's one of the surface transportation modes that we don't always talk about. But the island of Catalina, for instance, is located off the coast of my district, and it's about 26 miles from the mainland. And travel to and from this island is done almost completely by ferry boat. In fact, many of the island's teachers, doctors, dentists, they live on the mainland and commute to and from work on the ferry. And likewise, the residents of Avalon depend on the ferry to get to their jobs back on the mainland, and also buying groceries and medicines. The entire economy of Avalon depends on reliable, safe, and efficient ferry service. This amendment, listen closely, this amendment would add no additional cost to this legislation. It would simply make these ferry lines eligible to compete for federal assistance. So I urge you to consider this, and I yield back the balance of my time. This is an easy one.
Good job.
Any other members wish to be heard?
Yes. This is easy.
It's easy.
I wish to be heard, I guess.
Oh, come on.
Mr. Chairman, we do have some ferry provisions under federal law which relate to publicly operated ferries in Washington State, Alaska. There may be some others, but those are the two I'm particularly familiar with. It's my understanding that this would be, sorry, my phone is barking. I'm going to shut it off. There we go. That if I could ask the gentleman, is this a public or a privately owned ferry?
Yeah, the ferry system that services Catalina are privately owned. There are no public ferries going there.
I'm not aware of any precedent for using federal funds for a privately operated ferry that would be sort of akin to some places that have private transit, and again, where they're not eligible for federal funds. So I would have concern about that. I would note that the state of California has done some massive bonding, and they're doing a heck of a lot of good work. And the state could substitute state dollars for that and use the federal dollars elsewhere, and they wouldn't have any restriction. So I'm sorry, but I can't support the amendment.
Which, if I could just add, this amendment would also, for instance, allow our metro in Los Angeles to apply for these funds, and as you just described, would allow them to then, as they're already doing, helping to subsidize this ferry.
I appreciate Ms. Hahn's offering this amendment. I have to agree with Mr. DeFazio. Again, it is a private entity now. In addition to Mr. DeFazio mentioned, Alaska and Washington, North Carolina, and New York, New Jersey offer ferry systems. And the dollars, once again, we come back to the dollars. There's limited resources for those ferry systems, and I know they're constantly clamoring and pushing to be able to get more dollars, and because of our constraints, again, I would have to oppose it this time, as well as Mr. DeFazio's argument, so I would urge all members to oppose.
Well, on that bright note, I'll withdraw this amendment and make sure any of you ever want to travel to Catalina, I'll let them know how you felt about this.
I appreciate the gentlelady withdrawing, and
with the changes in our MREs, we probably won't be able to charter a private boat, so I guess we're out of luck.
I look forward to traveling to Catalina someday. With that, we take the next amendment is Mr. Gibbs' amendment, number 13.